Okay, this list was legitimately hell to put together. It was really tough just getting the initial 10 series I wanted to include. That was tough. There was two that I really wanted to have in here that I couldn't fit in, but I was like, we'll put that out of the way. Then ranking these 10, almost impossible. I've been umming and ahhing all week of how I want to do this thing. I think I've got it somewhere good now, but it took a long time to get here. So you better be thankful. You better like this video. You better click subscribe, and you better let me know your top 10 series down below. But let's jump straight into the list. We've got 7 fantasies, 3 sci-fis that feel like fantasies, and at number 10, we have Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinnerman. This is one of the most fun series you'll ever read. You get a super compelling plot that's very easy to follow along with, that's always moving forward and just always makes sense. We get a main character that's easy to relate to because he's literally a guy from Seattle in 2020 who's outside getting his ex-girlfriend's cat whilst everyone inside at the time gets squashed as the aliens have come. The apocalypse has come. And now there's a televised game show of an 18 level dungeon that is basically played out like a video game that our guy Carl and his ex-girlfriend's cat Donut are thrown into. We are literally just following them as they go through this 18 level dungeon that kind of works like the Hunger Games. So it's televised for everyone to watch. You can get sponsors, and there's a ton of political elements going on in the background with the people that run the show and are mining the planet and all the different alien corporations. So we get the instant plot of just making it through the dungeon. We get an overarching plot of fighting back against the game makers and a ton of politicking going on in all the different elements in between. There's an AI that's not working appropriately that runs the show. So many fun, interesting dynamics in the plot. And then character-wise, we get the relatable main character from our world that's very smart, very capable, very much a problem solver. Then we have Princess Donut, his ex-girlfriend's cat, who gets the ability to speak once she enters the show. Just a really great back and forth dynamic between these two. She's such a drama queen, and she grows so much as a character through the books. And there's just a ton of humor thrown into this story. So it's an absolute blast all the way through. You'll see a ton of praise for the audiobooks for Dungeon Crawler Carl because the narrator, Jeff Hayes, does such an incredible job with all the different accents. Just super well done all round. Though if you're not an audiobook person, definitely still check out the books. They read really well. I read the first 2, listened to the next 3. I've still got 2 more to go. It's just a great time. Dungeon Crawler Carl is going to work for a lot of people. I highly recommend checking it out. But coming in at number 9, we're staying in the sci-fi field, but going way darker with Red Rising by Pierce Brown. What is it? Who is it for? Why do I love it so much? We are following Darrow, a red from Mars. So what is a red? In Red Rising, we are in a caste-based society. And the Reds sit at the bottom of this hierarchy and they are basically like slaves. And Darrow, he just thinks he's been terraforming Mars, getting it ready for people to live on. Little does he know, people have already been living on Mars for hundreds of years. And from circumstances that happened very early on in the book, we can see that Darrow has a deep hate for the Golds. And when an opportunity arises for him to infiltrate Gold Society and try to bring them down from within, inciting rebellion, Darrow goes after that with every fiber of his being. And this is a story of rebellion. Very much has that Star Wars feel, but more so just in the scope of our galaxy. So there's no aliens, it's just humans 800 years in the future from now. The Golds, who just started as leaders of the rich corporations that were expanding out from Earth, they now rule with an iron fist, and Darrow is trying to lead the rebellion that frees everyone and sets up a new structure in society. This is written super well. It's super dark and gritty. Book 1 wasn't my favorite book. It was more just Darrow getting into the spot where he needed to be to infiltrate the Golds and start bringing them down from within. So it feels like a little bit of a just build up to then getting to the main part of the series. So if you even just have like a smidge of a good time with book 1, you're probably going to love the rest of the series because it just gets incredibly good from book 2 onwards. And one of the reasons I love this series so much is because I grew up on the Star Wars movies. I loved the originals, I loved the original trilogy, just focusing on bringing down the Empire. But I really didn't like the sequels and the direction they went. With Red Rising, they have like an original trilogy and the 4 books set after it. The last book potentially coming out next year. They follow a storyline that the Star Wars sequels should have, and that's one of the reasons I love it. But I won't tell you what that is, but if you want dark, gritty action in space, the rebellion taking on an evil empire, Red Rising. Now, number 8, changing tones completely from real gritty and dark to light, whimsical, quirky, and just pure fun and good vibes and laughs. We have Discworld by Terry Pratchett. This is a series of about 40 novels. I've only read 4 of them so far, but every single one has been a ton of fun. Going Postal would have to be my favorite novel I've read so far from Discworld. But basically, Discworld is a world that rides on the back of 4 elephants that are riding on the back of a turtle going through space. But the city we spend most of our time on in Discworld is a city that's just hit its industrial revolution. So there's always new things coming in. There's always new technologies being built, new systems being put in place. And this is our author's opportunity. This is Terry Pratchett's opportunity to do a lot of social commentary on all these sorts of things. Terry Pratchett is very smart and witty, so he has a lot of things he wants to say and a lot of jokes he wants to make. So he fills every book with some sort of message or topic he wants to talk about, a very whimsical writing style and a very quirky sort of world. So you just get a lot of different sort of creatures. Like, for example, just look at all the different weird things you have going on his titles. So you get trolls and dwarves and goblins and weird sorts of fantasy creatures in a very fairy tale-esque sort of bouncy vibe to his books. But there's always a compelling story going forward. There's always characters you're interested in. Absolutely love Discworld. If you're looking for short, fun, but still compelling and interesting and very well written reads, you've got to check out Discworld. My favorite book, Going Postal, follows a con man as he is caught by the guards of the town that we love to follow, and the evil ruler gives him an opportunity to not get hanged, where basically he has to use his con man skills to get the post office back up and running again after it has basically become defunct because a rival communications technology has kind of taken over the whole system. Very fun seeing a con man have to work for the government and put his little schemes to use and get the post office to what we know it as today. Hey, sorry to interrupt. I'll try to be nice and quick. Firstly, thank you so much for taking your time to watch me talk about books. I appreciate it so much. I'm so grateful for everyone that watches. And I just wanted to let you know that if you want to support the channel a little extra, I just recently started a Patreon. If you want some extra bookish content, clubs, and community, the link for that is down in the description. Enjoy the rest of the video. Now, here's where things get interesting. The top 7 on this list are so equal in my mind, they're almost interchangeable. Like, 7 is so close to 1, 2 is so close to 7. Like, these are all really, really good series. So at number 7, I'm putting The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. So this would be my favorite hero's journey fantasy, where we've got our farm boy that has to become the hero and save the day. We've got a huge continent inspired by medieval Europe. So we've got lots of different cultures in there, lots of different countries. We've got giants that are kind of like the elves of the land. So they live very long. They're connected to the magics and just the old power of the world. They ride on bears and giant lizards. And they're the most fantasy elements. There's a little bit of blood magic going on there. But for the most part, it's just humans getting drawn into a war started by angels and demons. And this is a war of prophecy. We have a chosen one. There's a big twist on the chosen one trope in this book, this series, that is really well done. I like that we think it's going one way, we get a twist and it goes another way. And across this series, just a whole continent with tons of different countries just all pulled into one war. There's tons of battles throughout. There's tons of really great character journeys. A lot of my favorite characters, both protagonists and antagonists, come from this series. The character journeys and arcs are absolutely incredible. Just the battles that go on throughout this series, the training arcs that go on throughout this series. So much to love. And the battles from this series still live on in my mind. I will never forget so many of these ones. Some of the revenge that some of our characters get across these 4 books. Fantastic, great twist along the way. Takes a lot of what we love from classic fantasy, but done with a modern voice, with some modern twists. absolutely love The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. If you read it, make sure you read the sequel series of Blood and Bone. That's set about 130 years after The Faithful and the Fallen. Incredible close up for the Banished Lands saga. Then coming in at number 6, we have a series that I wish I could put higher, but I haven't read enough of it yet. But I have a feeling next year it's probably going to be number 1. I'm just going to become like the rest of you with Malazan Book of the Fallen, because this is just a series that excels in every aspect of epic fantasy. The writing, the world building, the characters, the plot are all done to such a high level. When it comes to Malazan, we just aren't following one person or a couple people's stories. We're just following the Malazan Empire as it's in a pivotal time. The Malazan Empire has been growing and expanding for years with their military and their mages, but recently in the last 5 years, they have had a change of leadership and they are still pushing out and trying to build their empire to be as big as possible. In the first 2 books, we're on 2 different continents where the empire is either trying to grow and expand and take over a new continent, or keep hold and keep in control of a continent it's already conquered. And we get POVs from people in all ranks of their military, of their citizenships, of their like ruling class. We get everyone's perspective, both in and outside of the empire, of these big events that are going on these continents that they're either trying to take over or keep control of. We get lots of different storylines in each book, so you have to make sure you're paying attention so you can be like, all right, this is this character, because there's a lot of characters in each book that you have to keep track of, and lots of different storylines, but they all kind of weave in and work together. The world building is huge. Like, each of these continents feel distinct in their own. There's a ton of different magic systems. There's a ton of different like magical races and beings and species. It's the biggest world I've ever read and been immersed into. I love it so much. The writing is so well done. It reminds me a lot of Joe Abercrombie, just slightly less humor, a little bit more floweriness, but the grittiness, the realness, the fleshing out each character where every character feels real and you understand their motivations and drives. Really well done. And because there's so many characters, it's even more impressive because they all feel fleshed out, though we don't spend that much time with each of them individually because we are jumping around to so many different POVs. And yes, this is a series you definitely have to pay attention to. And I do recommend the companion guides written by the podcast 10 Very Big Books. And you can find them on Reddit. But if you pay attention, have the guide just in case you forget what's going on, you'll have a great time with these books if you love huge epic fantasy on massive scales, bit of a dark military sort of vibe. Absolutely love Malazan. I'm pretty sure it's going to be number 1 next year, but I've only read 2 books. So, what's above it? The top 5, coming at number 5, The First Law World by Joe Abercrombie. I've read 5 books in this world. I'm currently just about to finish the 6th, Red Country. I just always have a great time reading Joe's books. I'm always interested in his characters. That is the highlight of First Law, and for very good reason. Joe is just such an incredible writer. He paints such a gritty, real picture. The way he writes, it just feels like we're trekking through the mud. Like there's mosquitoes biting you and you're just uncomfortable and your feet have been soggy for days. He doesn't like grandiorize any of the things our characters are going through. Like sometimes in fantasy life, some things being made to feel a bit not as bad as they would be if you were doing it in real life. But no, you definitely feel like you've got mud in your boots and like you're covered in ants. Like he sets that vibe right. His writing is just that perfect amount of descriptiveness, but still very easy to read. And every character just is so well done. They are so well fleshed out that you understand their motivations, their drives, and you just become invested in each character's individual story. So even if like for some of the books like Red Country and The Blade itself, there's no big overarching plot that's that great, just following the characters' lives is super interesting and you're hooked the whole time and very much invested in their story. There's always some really good action thrown in there. Like the book The Heroes is one whole big battle. And I think every one of us goes into it thinking, oh, all right, this is probably not going to be that great because it's just 500 pages on one big fight. No, he makes it so well done. Each character's journey through that battle, just you hook the whole time. So well done. If you just want fun fantasy, you read The First Law. I know it was saying dark and gritty. Yes, it feels real and gritty, and there's like dark things happening. There's people are dying, people are getting stab wounds all the time. But with the humor he adds in, it doesn't really feel dark. It just feels fun and real. Absolute blast. So coming in at number 4, talking about just another incredible character writer, The Realm with the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I've read 6 of these novels so far, and just like with Abercrombie, I've loved all of them, and very much for the same reasons, where just following the main character's journey, seeing them grow and go through different things. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to put First Law at number 3. Yeah, let's put First Law at number 3. So, Realm of the Elderlings, number 5. Not saying anything bad about it. Like, I absolutely love it. I love the world building. There's just more characters I love in First Law. There's just more of them. But Realm of the Elderlings, Robin Hobb has the most cozy writing style I've ever read. Like, it's very descriptive and beautiful. It draws you in, and very quickly you just get lost in another world. And it reads very smooth, which makes it the coziness. So it's not just plain prose. It's very descriptive, but it reads very easily. So you just slip away into another world without even realizing it. It just reads so beautifully. She writes really long chapters, so we feel like we get like a story in itself within each chapter. I love how across the 2 trilogies, the 6 books, we can feel this building to something bigger. There's still 10 more books to go, so I've got a lot more time to spend in this world, which I just can't wait for. But Realm of the Elderlings, if you want character-driven drama in a fantasy world, check it out. So coming in at a tied 3 with First Law, we have Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio, often described as Name of the Wind meets Dune. This is another one of those stories where our main character is telling us about their life. He's writing out his autobiography, basically. So we get the whole story through his eyes, where he can fill in little snippets through his story, where he's like, oh, I wish I'd known this, or oh, when I met this person, oh, I was thinking this, little did I know I would end up thinking this. So you get a really good, compelling story of just fun things thrown in of like, oh, what is this building to? Like on page 1, we know exactly what it's building to, but we don't exactly know how we get there. On page 1, our main character tells us, I blew up a sun to wipe out and kill the alien race of the Cielsen as they were trying to destroy humanity, and I also killed my own emperor. Here's my story. And Hadrian Marlowe told us how he became known as the Sun Eater, how he ended up there, and it is just one hell of a ride. So this is set about 20,000 years in our future. Humans have populated thousands of planets. They've seen other races, but there's one big alien race that is trying to wipe out humanity. They're known as the Cielsen. Hadrian's just from this out of the way planet. He's the son of the guy that runs this planet. He's pretty idealistic. He thinks he can negotiate peace with these Cielsen, and sets out on this journey to become more than he is. And he's very melodramatic. He's very idealistic. He's very much flawed. You're not going to love him, but you're going to be very compelled to hear his story. Christopher Rocchio is one of the best writers I've ever read. I absolutely love his prose. Kind of like a Hobb, it reads very smooth, but it's very descriptive. You can easily get lost in his worlds. In book 1 of this series, we don't really get too much plot for the main story. We kind of just get Christopher Rocchio showing off his writing and showing off his world. In book 2, we kind of get to the plot and get an idea of what's going on. And then book 3, we get one of the best books ever written, Demon in White. He starts running with the plot. You just get non-stop, big, huge space battles, exploration and archaeology in space, hunting down mysterious beings, get a ton of politicking, and just really good action, politics, characters, writing, world building. It's all done on such an elite level. You have to check out Sun Eater by Christopher Rocchio. So, coming in at number 2, we have the fantasy world that feels most alive to me. One of the series that really sparked my love for this genre and just made me a fantasy reader for life. And that's A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I know it's not complete. I don't think it'll ever be complete. I think the books we have now are all the books we'll ever get. If there was ever more written, I'd love that, but I don't really hold out any hope for that. And what we got is 5 of the most enjoyable books I have ever read. The world of Westeros and all the surrounding lands feel so alive in my mind. I just have such vivid pictures of my head of all the scenery and world building from this series. And I absolutely adore George's writing. His prose just puts me in that world and that setting. It's very immersive. He uses a bit of older language and it's very descriptive. So it just feels like you're part of it. Every character is interesting and has layers and depths, and their relationships with each other just super compelling. And it's just one of the series that sparked my love for this genre. I love the politicking, I love the characters, I love the world. It's fantastic. You guys have seen it. You either love it or you don't. And then coming in at number 1, if you've watched any of my videos in the last year, you'll know exactly what it is. Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. So breaking down this series, what it is and why I love it so much, let's just start from the top with the writing. Jay Kristoff gets super flowery with his prose. He loves his metaphors, his similes, his descriptions, and he just throws it all in there. He throws in so much profanity into his books, and very creative profanity. The sort of swears and cusses he uses in his books always will give you a good chuckle and a good laugh, just seeing how creative he gets with them. Like the similes, metaphors, descriptions he'll chuck in his book, just always beautiful. They're super immersive. And The Empire of the Vampire is told by my favorite character, Gabriel de Leon. He is trapped in a prison cell. He's got a vampire historian across from him. He's the last Silver Saint of San Michon left, the last guy from this warrior sect from the church that are there to fight back against vampires. He's the last one left. Day's death has come. There's a fog over the sky, so vampires are out 24/7, and they have conquered this entire continent that this story is set on. Gabriel is a famous warrior, but right now he is in a prison cell with this historian who is taking down his story. And Gabriel has been telling us both his life story of, how he came to be this famous warrior and get to where he is now, and all the things he's done in his past, and what he's been doing the last 6 months to fight back what he's been getting wound up in, which is basically humanity's last hope to stop the Empire of the Vampire and to bring an end to Day's death. And like Hadrian and Sun Eater, Gabe loves to tell a story. He likes to get dramatic and build things up. He is very cheeky and he's very up himself. And the way he tells his story is just hilarious. The back and forth he has with his interviewer is very funny. Jay makes sure he puts like speech marks everywhere. So he's letting us know that this whole story is being told to us in the present. We're not jumping into the time. We are always in the prison cell of Gabriel as he's telling his story. Just 100% my favorite character of all time. The way he talks, his humor, his wit. Excellent. Anytime Gabriel is on the page, I am having a good time. It is the most enjoyable reading experience I've got from any book I have ever read. That's why it included trilogy with just 2 books out, book 3 coming out later this year. Keep your eye out for November. That is why it is my number 1, because it's just pure enjoyment all the way through. The plot, really interesting, really fresh and creative. The world building, we just get a huge, dark world that is full of lots of intricacies laid out very efficiently in 2 books. It's a nice, fresh take on vampires where they get some interesting abilities and there's bloodlines from different families. There's some other fantastical elements and species that are thrown in there as well. They're very interesting. It's just a fun, dark, gritty time. Jay will take you through all the emotions. He'll throw a bit of spice in there. He'll throw some gore in there. He'll throw in some berserk level action. And he'll just throw in some beautiful poetry. You get everything in Empire of the Vampire, and that is why it is my number 1 series of all time. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.